Hello, and welcome to another video. In this video, I want to explain a few more things about the words for and since when we use them with present perfect. So, let me just write that here on the board. Let's call this 2-3C, more you should know, more that you should know. About for and since. Okay, so to get started, let's review what we learned in the last video. Oh, let me turn, okay, there, now you can see the title. So take a look at these two sentences. Joe and Melissa have loved each other since 1985. Joe and Melissa have loved each other for 35 years. First, let's see what you remember from the last video. I have a couple questions to ask you. First question is, do these two sentences mean the same thing or different things? Oh, by the way, I am making this video in 2020, okay? So please think that the year is 2020. Do these two sentences mean the same thing? Pause if you need to think. The answer is yes, they mean the same thing. So now let's talk about what do they mean. Okay, so let's draw a picture of both of these sentences. So because they mean the same thing, they'll have the same picture. So this is the present, this is the future, this is the past. First question is, when did they start to love one another? Well, the answer is 1985 or 35 years ago. So those are the same. So here I'll put 1985. So they started to love in 1985. Next question. Do they love each other now? Do they love each other now? The answer is, well, let's remember what present perfect means. Present perfect means that the action started, let's back up. Let's talk about what it means when I use present perfect and a length of time. Like since 1985 or 435 years. When I use present perfect and a length of time, it means the action started in the past and continues until now. So the action continues till now. The answer is yes. Joe and Melissa still love each other now. So it started in the past, it continues to now. So these two sentences mean exactly the same. They both mean that Joe and Melissa started to love each other in 1985, 35 years ago, and it continues until now. Okay, now I want to show you a few more things about for. So let me write another sentence up here on the board. Let me use a very different color so it's easy to see. Let's see here. Let's see here. Okay. When I was younger, I taught high school for, let me change colors for that. I taught high school for 7 years. Okay. Let me write another sentence here. This video will probably run for I'd say, best guess, 15 minutes. And let me see. Let me do one more. I have room for one more. Let's see here. Bill was talking to his boss. Oops, I wanted to make this black. Excuse me, I'm going to change that. For 15 minutes. And Bill was talking to his boss for a long time. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences here. Let's read each sentence. Joe and Melissa have loved each other for 35 years. Okay, and I have 4 in a length of time. When I was younger, I taught high school for 7 years. This video will probably run for 15 minutes. Bill was talking to his boss for a long time. So take a minute and ask yourself, what is similar about each of these sentences? Let me give you a hint. The similar part is in black. I hope that should make it easy. The similar part is in black. Pause if you need a second. Okay. The thing that's similar about these sentences is each of them has 4 and a length of time. 4, 35 years. 4, 7 years. 4, 15 minutes. For a long time. So each of these sentences uses 4 and a length of time. Yeah, okay, good. Now, I want to point out something else about these sentences. I think I need a different color marker. I'm not sure I have one that's a different color. Let's use brown. In this sentence, the verb is present perfect, have loved. In this sentence, the verb is taught. I taught for 7 years. That's past. In this sentence, the verb is will run. That's future. In this, the verb is past progressive, was talking. So I look here, and each of these uses 4 and a length of time. I have present perfect with 4 and 35 years. I have taught, which is past, and I have 4 and a length of time. I have will run for future and 4 and a length of time. And I have was talking and 4 and a length of time for a long time. So the point that I want to make with these sentences, the point that I want you to remember is this. I can use 4 plus a length of time with many different verb tenses. Here we used 4 and a length of time with 4 different verb tenses. But what I would like, but actually, I can use 4 and a length of time with almost all verb tenses. There's only one that I don't use 4 and a length of time with, and that is present progressive. Okay? So, any other verb tense, you can use 4 and a length of time. Okay? Sound good? It doesn't have to be just present perfect. I can use 4 and a length of time with many, many, many different verb tenses. All of them except present progressive. Okay, now let me erase this, and I'm going to reorganize it just a bit. I'm going to erase these other sentences. And this is one of those times I wish I was back in my classroom where I had this really big whiteboard. But let me write this note here. I can use 4 plus a length of time with many different verb tenses. In fact, like I said, I can use it with all of the verb tenses except for present progressive. Okay, now let's come over here with since. Joe and Melissa have loved each other since 1985. Here's the point that I want you to remember. I can use 4 with many different verb tenses, but I can use since and a length of time only with verb tenses like the present perfect. Now, what do I mean when I say verb tenses like the present perfect? Okay. When I say verb tenses like the present perfect, if you studied grammar, what I mean is perfect tenses. If you haven't studied grammar, a good way to think of it is verb tenses that start with have. Okay, some form of have. Have, had, or will have. If the verb tense starts with have, it's a perfect tense. So what I want you to know here is I can't use since with most verb tenses. I can use since plus a length of time I can use since plus a length of time only with verb tenses that start with have. And when I say have, that could be have, has, had, or will have. So there are a number of different forms of have. So I don't just mean have, but it could be have, has, had, or will have. Okay? And so far, we have studied only one verb tense that starts with have, present perfect. Joe and Melissa have loved each other. John has eaten dinner, okay? Have and past participle. There are actually a few more verb tenses that start with have. In fact, let's see here, past perfect, present perfect, progressive, past perfect. Hold on. I think we've got 6. Let me count. There's present perfect, progressive, past perfect, progressive, future perfect, progressive, right? There are actually 6. The last 2, future and future perfect progressive, to be honest, we don't use very much, but we will talk about them. But they're not, they're one of those they're a verb tense that you could go many, many years without hearing. Anyway, the rule that I want you to know right here. I can use 4 plus a length of time with many different verb tenses. But I can use since with a length of time only with the verb tenses that start with the word have, some form of the verb have. And that could be have, has, had, or will have, or is going to have. That's also a possibility. Okay. So, 4 many verb tenses, since plus a length of time, only the perfect verb tenses. That's one point that I wanted to show you. And I wanted to show you one more thing about since. So you remember in the last video, we were talking about, we said, I use for and for and a length of time, like for an hour, for 35 years, for 10 minutes, for 3 months, for 3 days. It's always a length of time. I use, so actually let me write that there. I have for, when I use it to show a length of time, I use for plus a length of time. And that length of time might be 35 years, 10 minutes, 3 seconds, 1,000 years, 2,500 years, 32 months, last 2 weeks, okay? But it's always a length of time. How's that? Good? And we also talked about when I use since plus the starting time. So I use since plus the starting time. In other words, Joe and Melissa started loving each other in 1985. So I put since plus the starting time since 1985. And for an English speaker, when an English speaker hears they have loved each other since 1985, they know 1985 is the starting point, the time they started to love each other. Good? Now, I can say the starting point by saying a day, a time, or a year. I could say since 1985. Or I could say since last month. Or maybe they are very newly in love, maybe since Tuesday. They started on Tuesday and continued until now. Or maybe they just very fell in love today. John and Mary have loved each other since 3 o'clock. Okay? But I use since plus the starting point. Now, I can use a starting point by saying like a year or a month or since July or a day since Tuesday or even a time since 3 o'clock. But there's another way that I can do it. I could also say, the other way I can say the starting point is I might say, Joe and Melissa have loved each other since they met. And here, I don't have a day or a month or a year. I have a sentence. They met, or not a sentence, a clause if you're picky. But since they met, but this is the time it started. It started when they met. So it can still work as the starting time. Or I could say, since they were children. Maybe they grew up next door to each other. And again, I can say since they were children, that shows, again, the starting time. It started when they were children. Or let me try to give you another example. Joe and Melissa have loved each other since their cousin, or how about since I introduced them, from the time I introduced them. I said, Joe, this is Melissa. Melissa, this is Joe, and they fell in love. So here, the point that I want you to remember is, when I use since and the starting time, I can use just a time, like a year or a month or a day or a clock time, but I could also use a sentence that tells the starting time. Since they met. When they met, that was the starting time. Since they were children. When they were children, that was the starting time. Since I introduced them. When I introduced them, that was the starting time. Okay. I believe that's everything I wanted to tell you in this video. In the next video, we're going to start talking about the meanings of present perfect when it does not, or the meaning of present perfect when it does not have a length of time. Oh, by the way, again, if you want to know more about these, if you'd like to read more examples or read more about it, again, there's the free book. I should find a way that I can post this just at the end of every video. I'm not great at technology yet. I may learn more. But again, you can find the book easily. You Google my name, you Google verb tenses, and you will find the book. So if you do Kent Uchiyama verb tenses, you can find a free book that will explain a lot of this, this and many of the other things we'll talk about in verb tenses in more detail. And again, it's free. It won't cost you nothing, and you can just download it right onto your computer. Okay, thanks for watching.